Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru Review 801. Today we're going to take a look at Great Western Trail El Paso. This is a new game that's coming out shortly from Lookout Games. Designed by Alexander Pfister, who did the other three Great Western Trail games, as well as co-designed by, I'm going to butcher the name, Johannes Krenner. It is a very similar game to the other Great Western Trail games, although it plays much quicker. This is 60 to 90 minutes. I'll talk more about the playtime in the review. But this is kind of a condensed version of the other Great Western Trail games. Maybe a good entry game. I'll talk more about that in the review part of it as well. But it also does some significant mechanical differences and changes from the others. So maybe worth investigating just for those alone. Hint, it is. So sorry about that. But let me show you how it works. Then I'll come back. And now I've already spoiled the review, but I'll tell you what I think about it, at the end. Okay, so I've got the board set up here with some cards along the side here. And I do say board. This is actually a cloth mat here. So if you can take a look, it might be, I really can't tell how easy it is to notice this on camera. So there you go. That's a cloth map. It's not double-sided or anything. This is part of Lookout Games Green Line series. So I think it are trying to be a little bit more eco-friendly and environmentally friendly and so on. Kind of maybe scaled down components using some different materials. I will make one comment about that. I think everything in here is fantastic, regardless if it's green line or not. I do kind of like this cloth map. You can see, you might be able to see, there's a little bit of like a fold here because you have to fold it up to put it back in the box. It's not a huge deal, except for, we take a look here on this player board here. So whereas in, the original Great Western Trails, these would be wooden discs. And you might have some wooden cubes. These are sort of cardboard discs there, and you'll be placing these out on this board here. I will say though, I think if they were wooden discs, they would place a little bit better here where there's some of these folds. It is not a big deal. It's just the only sort of component complaint. If I could dig one out of the ground, that's what it would be. Everything else is really cool. You have these nice big chunky cowboy meeples there, and everything else is pretty much what you would expect, from a modern Euro game. Now, if you're familiar with Great Western Trail, you're going to get a lot of this. I will mostly go over the rules. Some of the stuff I'm going to take for granted that you know some of the Great Western Trail stuff, but I will explain, some of the basics as we go. So the idea is that you're traveling around this path here, and this is El Paso. And so here we have some of the starting buildings, these two different actions, which I'll show you. You can see these have letters. So there's like spots when you're playing sort of the intro game that you will put these in fixed spots. But once you play your first game, you can shuffle up the position of all of these, except for El Paso. This is where you're going to make your deliveries. And you will start the game by putting your meeple on one of these spots, just like in the others, and then taking that action. And then from there, you get 3 movement, and you can move 3 spaces around the board. You always have to stop at El Paso, just like the others. You will have a hand of 4 cards. Everybody has the same starting hand. So you have 2 of each of these 2 value cards, 4 of these terrible gray ones, and you always have a hand of 4 cards. And through your travels around there, you're going to be discarding these to get rid of them, or exchanging them, or using them to pay for things and so on. And then once you get to El Paso and you arrive there, you take whatever 4 cards you happen to have, make a delivery, and then you'll have an amount. So you're going to total these up. You can't have any duplicates for the most part, although there are some ways to break that rule. And so anything that's a duplicate, you'll ignore. Then you'll pay for those. And then you'll put up one of your little discs out here. So let's say you had a total value of like 9. You'll take one of the discs off your board and then put it there, just like all the other Great Western Trail games. The thing that's a little bit different when you get back to El Paso is you will just take, we'll take a look here. It tells us on the tile. You'll just take $5 every time. You'll take one of these orange Simmental blue cows, and then you'll be able to turn this in and then place one of your discs out. So depending on the player count, there'll be this stack here of these cards, and it's written there on the cloth there. So for a 2-player game of 9 of these. So once the last one is pulled, we'll just zoom in here, the next player to deliver is going to, instead of taking a card, they're going to take and put their little character there. They're going to get 2 points at the end of the game. Once that happens, that's this player's last turn. Everybody else gets a turn, and then that will be the end of the game. One thing to notice here with these orange cows is they're value 2 when you go to trade them in, but they're worth no victory points at the end of the game. Whereas these cows here that you can purchase, you can see they have varying different values here, and they're worth victory points at the end of the game. So here we can see kind of the cow market display as well as the housing display here. This is very similar to the original games. We'll just take a look at the little market sheet there. You can see, okay, you need one cow or one cowboy, and you got to spend $2 to get one of the yellow 3s, 2 cowboys and $4 for the blue 3s, and then we have 3 and 6 for the 4, 4 and 8 for the 5. So that's very similar. Here we have the housing purchase, so just similar to the originals. You can have one builder worker and this amount for money, and this and this and this and this. And you can also upgrade as well. So if you built like a level 2, for example, and then you wanted to upgrade to a level 5, if you had 3 builders, then you can do the upgrade. Now the thing to notice here is not everybody has their own supply of buildings. And you see there's only 2 of each. These are double-sided. So the A side is kind of like the beginner side or whatever, but you can take the stacks and flip them to the B side as well. But once these 2 are built, nobody else can build that building. So it's very interesting kind of little race here. But players can only build 2 total buildings. So that's a little bit of a difference here. And also the workers are very different. This is probably the main difference. So let's go down to the player board. So a couple things to note about this. This is very similar to what you've got in the originals with the discs and unlocking the different special abilities. You've got your deck of cards. I already showed you that. You got the different cows in here. New cows that you buy will go into your discard and then get shuffled back out. Similarly, the workers will get shuffled into your deck. Now everybody starts with 1 of each worker. So you've got a cowboy, a builder, a train guy, and then a wild worker in this case, which can be one of the other 3. Now you start the game with 1 of each out here in front of you. As you spend them, so if you go to a spot, for example, let's say we go here and this gives us the ability to discard a green cow for $2 and then build a building, very similar to the original. Then based on the number of workers I discard into my discard pile, in this case it could be 1 or 2, because remember that's a wild, then I can build up to that strength for that building. So if I discarded both of these, then I could build this sort of like level 2 building here. And when you put a building out, you're going to have one of these little like cubes. That's not a cube, but it's a little piece of cardboard, and mark it. And all that means is that if somebody else lands on it, all they can do is one of these auxiliary actions. Only I can do the special action on the building. Now there is no like charging, or there's no green hands and black hands or any of that kind of stuff. There's no like, toll routes, if you will, like the other games. So it just kind of gets in the way, of the player's movement as they move around. And so the interesting part about this is when you redraw these workers as they come back out, they don't go into your hand, they just go immediately to the display in front of you, and then you'll redraw a replacement. So if you have a deck full of workers, it's not going to clog it up at all, in the sense that you're not going to be missing out on any cow delivery actions there. But you want to do that because you want to cycle these through as you move around this board here, to be able to have multiples of these, because like I said with the cowboys and the builders that we've seen, the strength of the building or the cow that you can purchase goes up. And you have these as well. You'll also notice that these workers here are worth victory points, and they also have special abilities. So if I wanted to, instead of saving this cowboy to do the cow purchase action, I can also discard it for its special ability, which this will give me +1 movement when I'm doing my movement, which could come in handy. The builder's special ability is you can spend $2. That'll get you a certificate. And if you're not familiar with Great Western Trail, the certificates, you can collect these and then you can spend them when you turn in your hand at El Paso to increase the overall value there. So if you get kind of towards the end, you're like, gosh, I just want to get one more little eking out of my hand of a certificate to give me extra bonus out here, then these can come in handy for that. It costs you $2. Then you can just discard the train engineer here for $1. These wilds you can discard for $2, which can come in handy. It is worth noting they are worth an extra victory point, but when you purchase workers, if you want to purchase a wild, it's an extra 4 coins there for that. And then, like I said, as you go around and you make deliveries, these will come off. You can see these sort of black outlined, black bordered ones. These are only going to come off when you place the more valuable spots and so on. And it's typical. This is very similar to the other game. So this will allow you to get extra money when you do that action. This will allow you to actually take an action to increase your certificates. This one allows you the exchange, or you can do up to 2 exchanges. And then this one allows you to trash a card. This one, normally you have a movement of 3, like I said. This one gives you a +1 movement. Normally you have a hand of 4. Now you have a hand of 5, so you're going to do better deliveries. And here you've got a permanent certificate, so you don't lose it when you spend it. Depending on where you start in turn order, you have some money and maybe 1 or more of these exchange tokens. When you do an exchange, you just draw a card in your hand and discard a card. So that's a good way to kind of cycle through your deck and also dig through your deck to hopefully expose some of these workers. So then you kind of build up your display there. Now let's see here. The other thing is here is all the train stuff. So everything we've talked about is pretty much how the other Great Western Trail works. You'll move to spots. You'll discard, for example, here, white cows, and this is the spot where you can buy more workers. The workers are over here. Similar to the original, you can buy 1 worker for 5. You have to buy a different worker for 8. So it can get expensive. Here you can get certificates and money. Here's where you can buy cows, build buildings. Here's the train stuff, which we'll talk about. And this is where you can get an exchange token plus 2 an auxiliary action, like so. And when you build buildings, you put them out here and so on. And some spots cost a little extra money to place. And then, here's your little bonuses for your deliveries. But let's talk about the trains. That's the other kind of significant difference. And also the bonus tiles, which I kind of lump in with it because they kind of work hand in hand. So when you do a train action, you're going to discard the train engineers here equal to the action you want to take. And these again are double-sided. The basic side doesn't have a star on it, and the other sides have stars, so you can just mix and match and flip these as you want. So here I would discard 1 train engineer or a wild, spend 2 coins, then I could get 1 of these bonus tiles and then an exchange token, or if it was on this side, I could get a bonus tile and then get a certificate. And then here you have these other tiles that you can get. I forget what they're called. There's like these bonus tiles, and then there's these other bonus tiles. There's a difference here. These are like gold tiles, these gray ones. I'll show them to you in a second. So anyway, as you go up there, so you can see over here with the most powerful one, you can get 3 certificates. You get your choice of the tile type and then move another 2 spaces. So that's pretty cool. Now let's talk about these tiles. Oh, before I talk about tiles, the game comes with these tuck boxes, which is really cool. And so you're always going to have 3 of each of the different tiles. So I can just leave them in the tuck box and kind of mix around and dig them and take them out. And there's also a tuck box here for the coins and also the player pieces. So that's pretty cool. That kind of makes up for the, somewhat chintzy player pieces there. So let's go and zoom in on these tiles. So you're always going to have a selection of 3, or you can draw randomly out of the box or out of a stack. So whenever you get an action that you see either on the train cards here or some other abilities that you might get, you're just going to draw 1 of these 3, or again you can draw blindly from the stack. Now these top ones here, these are going to give you straight up points and a special ability. So like for example, this one gives you 1 point, but allows you to carry into El Paso 1 duplicate. So remember, like every Great Western Trail, you want to have a diversity of cows. This one allows you 1 pair, and it will count both in that pair. Whereas this one, when you take it, this is nice because it gives you 4 points, which is very good, and allows you to trash a card immediately. So there's a whole mess of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're all really good and nice. Now this set here, this is like your goal cards, your goals. So for example, you'll take this, and you may or may not, have this at the moment, but this one is if you have a blue 3 and a yellow 3, that's going to be worth 3 points at the end of the game. Now let's take a look at these 2 in conjunction. So if we look at these 2 here, then this one is if you have, 4+ worth of buildings out there, you're going to get 4 points. So you have 4 strength of buildings. This one is 2 strength, and you're at least on a level 12 or higher delivery placement, then these will give you 3 and 4 points. Now you cannot split these. So if I had, let's say I had a level 4 building and then I was on here, that would fulfill this one and this one, but you couldn't use that building for both of these actions, right? You have to kind of choose. So each sort of item that contributes to these bonuses here can only be contributed to 1 bonus. And that's the gist of the game. Just like the other Great Western Trails, you're going around and around until the stack runs out. There is rules for solitaire, which I have played and I'll talk about. And yeah, you're just making the deliveries. Again, the workers part is really the big difference there. Also kind of the rush and race to build certain houses or certain buildings. The train stuff's a little bit different. Yeah, at the end of the game, you're going to score points for your buildings. Any cows you've bought, any workers you've bought are going to give you points. Your delivery spots that you put out here, these are going to give you different points and bonuses as well. So it might be points at the end of the game, extra exchange tokens or bonus tiles that let you get free workers and so on. And then again, your bonus tiles up at the top will give you a bunch of other points. Okay, so that is Great Western Trail El Paso. First I'll talk about player time. This is 60 to 90 minutes. I think that might be a little bit on the long end, although for 4 players, yeah, you might be looking at 90 minutes, but the folks I've been playing this with are very like seasoned Great Western Trail players. And so yeah, I mean, a solitaire game of this, which I've also played, doesn't take me 60 minutes, definitely less, probably about 45. I don't really put a stopwatch to it, but it goes really quick. So I think that's on the high end, 60 to 90 minutes. Speaking of which, I don't usually talk about price. This is only $35, $40. I've seen it online. Maybe there's some, pre-order sales or something. I'm not sure what the MSRP is supposed to be, but that's what I've seen it for. So that's definitely a reasonable, little package there with some of the component stuff that I talked about in the walkthrough. Now, player count, I have played this at all player counts except for 2, so 1, 3, and 4. And I really like it at all the player counts, even solitaire. And I assume I would like it at 2 as well, which is basically solitaire because you play with a bot, so you're effectively playing 2-player. Although I think I might like 2-player better because the solitaire bot, it does kind of like, I don't know if it cheats. Like I do enjoy it. Like I don't really necessarily always enjoy like a Euro game that's solo. So it feels like it's just like I'm randomly giving you points out. This kind of feels a little bit like that. I would say the solitaire that I've played the solitaire in all 3 of the main Great Western Trails. I think I like those a little bit better. There's a little bit more to them, and there's a little bit more of how it tries to do a strategy, which is a little bit more interesting, the way the workers come out. This has something similar where you'll deal it workers, and then it builds a little deck of like I can't remember, it's like a supply deck, it calls it. So you fill it with cows and workers. And then certain actions that you do when you flip like the automata AI cards, it will move the guy around and do certain things. And then it will kind of feed from its supply deck into a scoring pile if it draws a cow or an extra worker. Which is, I think it works. But it just seems kind of random if I win it, if I beat it or don't, based on like how generous it is with the points. Because sometimes it seems like if like all the 5-pointers are shuffled at the bottom, that's different than if they're at the top. So that's just a little thing, but it is fun. I do enjoy the solitaire game. Yeah, so it works. But I think for me, the solitaire and the others is better. Now, for the other player counts, we'll get into what is this game like, my last kind of pillar of review. Obviously, I'm going to compare it to the other Great Western Trails. And I saw somebody online, I don't remember where I saw this, but somebody said, oh, it's Great Western Trail, the card game, which is funny because the other Great Western Trails have the same deck building style mechanics, so it's a card game too, kind of. But this feels like more of a card game because the workers are cards. And I find that really cool and interesting. To me, that is what, this puts it, my favorite Great Western Trail is Argentina. I'd probably put New Zealand after that, and then the original 2nd edition, after that one. They're all really, really close. It's more of a taste, abstract thing. I like the delivery stuff in Argentina a little bit better than the others. New Zealand I felt like had a little too many extra mechanisms and stuff, but I did not like the game. It's just, if you're making me choose. And then the original is still really good, but it feels like it's kind of missing something that I want in like an Argentina or New Zealand. It kind of adds that extra layer of groundedness to that. And specifically, that's like the train part of it, because the train part of Great Western Trail it's cool, like it's fine. But then when you play something like an Argentina or New Zealand, which has that element, but like kind of does something more with it, then it kind of leaves that other one in the past. So my point is that it's kind of interesting because I like kind of the extra stuff that's going on in Argentina, even in New Zealand, where this one is the opposite direction. It pairs stuff away, pairs it down, because, you know, you don't have like a bunch of houses. There's like 10 buildings that each player has in the other ones, and you've got a shared supply of buildings, which is a really cool and interesting thing, because that is a definite thing you got to consider, because the buildings are also like, the buildings in this seem like they're all good, where sometimes in the Great Western Trail one there was definitely some that were like better than others, you know, and you would certainly, you know, I'm not like an expert, so maybe that there's like, you know, professional Great Western Trail players that would say, well, all these buildings are good in different ways, but this one, these are like, to me, all like obviously good. Even the early ones, the low value ones, it's like, man, I really want to get that, because of the speed of the game as well. Like just getting that extra bonus action that nobody has is really good. So having that race for it is cool. And the other thing is, like, if somebody upgrades and builds on top of it, it will put the other one back into the supply. It doesn't go away. So then somebody else can come and get it. So if you're like at the end of the game, you're like, oh, well, you know, I can't make it to El Paso. I've only got one turn. I can go build a cheap building maybe that somebody put back in, you know, because maybe that's an option, you know, if you're really stuck in your position. Not a great position to be in, honestly, but yeah, so that's cool. And then, like I said, and I probably will harp on this 3 more times, is the worker stuff, because that makes it feel more like a deck builder, more like a card game. So I get the kind of Great Western Trail of the card game, because you cannot oversell moving through your deck in this. Like, it becomes less of like a statistical probability thing where you're trying to get a good diversity of cards and some high value cards in the other ones and get those in there and get rid of the others, and you're trying to just build it in your options. But this, you know, so you have a good chance to draw cards. This is a little different. Like, you're still trying to build up the chances and discard the 1 value cards, but you're also trying to really make sure you hit spots that burn through your deck. Because even if I've seen it just the other day, I played this where I hit El Paso, discarded my cards, drew my hand a card, and I was like, I wish I could deliver these right now. And it's a little different than the original Great Western Trails, because in that one you might still be pushing your luck, saying like, well, yeah, but I want to have to be able to spend these, especially if I'm not like, I don't have all the money in the world to do all the actions as I go around. I'm probably going to want to spend some of these to give me some extra money to hire workers or build buildings or buy more cows and stuff. That element's still here, but there's also the element of like, I need to like get my deck moving so I can pull workers out of it. And so getting those exchange tokens is huge. Getting the extra augmented action to exchange cards is important. And all that stuff is important in the originals, but it's like a differently important, I don't know, more important almost in this game, I think. We're splitting hairs there on the more important part of it. But it's also really neat because you find yourself having this kind of new opportunity of like, okay, I got these here, and this is my worker situation right now. Whereas in the others, it's kind of fixed. And so then you're trying to like plan your route, because you're like, okay, I'm going to be able to do a really cool train action this time because I drew some train guys, you know, or is it worth spending that extra $4 to buy the wilds? And sometimes it definitely is, because then you give yourself more options. And like I said, you really kind of want to focus on digging through that deck, and it just makes it more fun where you kind of like drawing cards, and you get like, you know, I've had a turn where like I draw like 3 workers in a row, and it's like, yes, you know, and then you get the cards to backfill your hand after that. So then you feel like it's just a good feeling, and I like that. It feels that card is sort of card gamey aspect of it. And then the train stuff, that's the other really big difference is, you know, you're not having to like push your train down to like, you know, split the difference on like because you got to pay extra to deliver. So your delivery income that you get, you've got to like, there's some cost involved. That's all gone. And then, like I said, also all of the like the fees and the tolls and all that stuff from the player buildings, that's all gone, which is nice. I mean, that stuff's like 6 1/2 dozen. Like, did it even really need to be there in the first place? I mean, I argue yes, because the designs are based and balanced around some of that stuff. But like when you're like really like grinding into the core of the main game mechanic loop and all that stuff, that didn't really need to be there. So in this case, it's cool because the way the train works is, and the train is very much tied in with those end game bonus tiles. You can get them other ways, but the main kind of default way is with the trains, and that's cool. It's like that's your kind of like, and it really does remind me of the original Kalis in a way, because you know in that you had like your favorite track at the top. So if you haven't played that, I apologize, but it's like that's your bonus action spot. All of these other actions that you're juggling, getting cows, delivering cows, getting buildings, which give you special abilities, getting workers, doing all this stuff. It's all kind of your main engine. But then there's like this little like bonus land over here, and you want to try to make sure you tap that thing every time you loop. Like just go ahead and hit that little, you know, pull that little slot machine or whatever. Hit that little bell, right? Every time you make a loop, you want to make sure to hit that train bell, right? So that you can get bonus tiles, get the extra tiles that give you the extra abilities, you know, maybe trigger a couple of key auxiliary actions and get some certificates, all that kind of stuff. So it's this kind of interesting little like halfway point, you know, or midpoint in your loop is to make sure you hit that, because you're going to get a lot of points out of that. You get points out of the other parts of the main game system, but you got to make sure you ring that bell. So yeah, I highly recommend this. It's also great because it plays quick and it's much easier to teach, and you don't have to get into, because the main concept, you know, if you've never played a Great Western Trail game, is I think a little bit revelatory and new to somebody that isn't familiar. Like it certainly is. The first time I played, I was like, oh, I understand the deck building and worker placement, all this stuff. But this is a different kind of way of doing it in a very unique way. So this allows you to kind of present that on its own, and you know, get kind of people that are maybe newer to gaming or new to this certain style of gaming. But then you don't have the overhead, like I said, of the tolls and the way the trains work, or the deliveries in Argentina and all these other systems, which are great. I mean, I'm not like knocking them all of a sudden. I really like those. But this allows you to present this in a way of like, oh, here you go, let's play this, and then we'll play this a few times, and if you want to kind of turn the dial up on the complexity, we can pop into one of the bigger box games. But as it is, like I said, I would, if somebody says let's play this one and we have the option of the other three, I would, you know, maybe there's something of newness of this to me, but I would still choose this because I think it's really, really cool. Yeah, I don't know, it's we've played it several times recently. Oh, you can also play it on Board Game Arena, which a lot of my plays have been on, and it works really well there. So if you want to try the game out, you can just go to Board Game Arena and play it. I don't think you can like fire up solitaire. You got to find a buddy to at least play 2-player, but it works well in there. It works really great, and I definitely recommend this game. It's, you know, I was a little bit skeptical, honestly, and then played it on Board Game Arena, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually there's way more to this than I expected. And now that I've had a chance to play this real copy a few times, it's really good. I can't recommend it enough. So anyway, El Paso, thank you.